Welcome to the Organizational Transformation Kung Fu Podcast with your hosts, Sandi Verrecchia and Jennifer Long.
Hi, welcome to Organizational Transformation Kung Fu, or what we like to call OT Kung Fu for short. I am Jen Long, executive coach in Denver, Colorado, and I'm a master trainer. I'm here with my co-host and executive coach, Sandi Verrecchia from Satori Consulting in Toronto, Canada. Hi, Sandi.
Hey, Jen.
How you doing?
Wonderful.
Fantastic. We are going to have a special guest today, and I'm going to allow Sandi to introduce who we've brought in to talk about a special subject that is very pertinent right now in all of our lives.
Excellent. We're going to be talking about culture. And today we have the privilege of speaking with Tony Gareri, CEO of Roma Mouldings. Roma Mouldings operates in 5 countries and has more than 145 team members. And Tony says that their company culture is the engine that drives their growth and success. And as such, their culture attracts some of the world's top talent. I had the pleasure of working with Tony as he kicked off my 2019 Satori Insights conference back in the fall. And I can tell you that his message changed how many people in the audience looked at their internal culture. In fact, one CEO came up to me after the presentation and told me that Tony's presentation changed how he viewed his culture in his company, and how he could see that focusing on creating happiness within a culture could be a game changer for his organization. I don't know if you remember talking with him, Tony, when he came up to you after, I think, as well. But Tony's enthusiasm is infectious, and his happiness culture transcends every aspect of his life. Welcome, Tony. We're so pleased to have you join us today. Let's get started.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the kind introduction. And we had it was a pleasure to kick off your conference. So thanks for having me there. And I'm just so blessed to be here with you guys today.
Fantastic. You ready? We're going to pick the brain. We're going to pick your brain and get what we can from what you know. So welcome again. And I want to sort of just start with a little bit of background. You call yourself a culture enthusiast. What prompted you to become this?
I love how we're starting. I'm a company culture junkie. I didn't know what the term meant, in all honesty, about 8 years ago until I was, in pain. And usually I get called when companies are in some painful state. And basically, I've never looked back. And really, I call myself an enthusiast, number one, because I'm constantly learning new things about company culture and the dynamics about culture. And I don't think it's I don't think it's a static thing. I think it's constantly evolving. And as you said, COVID-19 has shined a huge light on company culture. And heck, if you had a great culture coming into COVID, God bless. If you had a challenging culture prior to COVID, it's going to be even more challenging. So yeah, I'm constantly learning.
Great. So how do you describe your culture at Roma Mouldings?
Yeah, I think, we're certainly, it's a team dynamic. I would say we're certainly driven by team. And when I say team, there's not one person that hosts the trophy. And winning isn't an individual sport per se. In tennis, Vanessa Williams is usually hoisting the trophy. And in our case, it's more of a team spirit. And we really know we're only as good as the sum of the parts. And so we try to have as much collaboration as possible and unity and teamwork. And so I would really look at us as a championship winning team.
Okay. And I know that in our conference, you described your culture as a happiness culture, a culture around happiness. So I know that doesn't mean ping pong tables and free coffee. So describe that for me.
Yeah, I think we put a high, a high attention to how are people feeling within the organization. And I think we put high value on people's happiness. We believe if people are happy while doing, their work for otherwise 8 hours a day, we believe that they'll produce some remarkable results, because I actually don't know anybody that's miserable producing great results. And so the more we can focus on people being We think of this bus theory, in the right seat of the bus, going in the right direction for the right reason. If we have those three components, we think and we believe, and we're, proof to that success is truly imminent.
Interesting. So as you're talking about this, I'm thinking to myself, when you mentioned when you started off, we get the call when people are in pain. So when you're starting this culture work, what is the pain, and what is the first thing what is the indication of the pain, and where do you start? Where do you start on culture?
Yeah, two very important questions. The reason I say it's usually in pain, because usually what drives human beings is massive pain or massive pleasure. It's usually you usually get a gym membership or a trainer when the doctor says to you, hey, if you don't jump on a treadmill, you're going to die of cardiac arrest because you have no circulation going on. And the same in many respects in business. And I can use us as an indicator when, coming out of post 08, 09, the global financial crisis, things were otherwise okay, but diving into that crisis is what had me really look at my own business. And we were in massive pain. We were hemorrhaging millions of dollars. We had high turnover. And what we realized is that we really didn't put a premium on people. And we put a premium primarily on our products or services, which many people do, and it's okay. But we lost sight of the most important component of any business, which is its people. And a lot of people will believe that or say that, but it's truly the only facet of your business that can't be replicated. Does that resonate?
It resonates. It reminds me of kind of Simon Sinek's why in a little bit, in that, most of us focus on our products and we don't focus kind of on why we're doing it. And in your case, talking about who's doing it, who's getting you there. Absolutely.
And the pain usually comes about when either, you're losing clients, or you have high turnover, or you're yourself as a CEO or senior leadership shaking your head saying, how are we, why is this happening? And then when you start to reflect on, that it really isn't the services or goods that you're selling, it's actually the people that are bringing it to life. That's when people start to think of, what are we doing wrong, or what could we be doing different? And that's when usually I get the call.
Right. So I'm curious about that a little bit, because, as you say, it's the pain or the pleasure that promotes you to do something differently. Are there any organizations that come to you that are in a good spot and say, Tony, help us get to a better spot?
Yeah, I think there are. And I think, when I first started, I didn't hear as many of them. I think company culture and culture in organizations is becoming a topic within the business community. How I know that is I Googled, I used to Google or put when you can actually put in a term and it'll send you anything, Google will send you anything on Google. When I used to do that 8 years ago, I would get maybe 2 or 3 articles. Today, that same phrase gives me 20 to 30 articles, per week, per day. So I know that the conversation is becoming more mainstream or more prevalent. And so I think it's resonating. So I think people are saying, how can I become better? And many are saying, I need to do some serious work on my people.
Right. So culture and people is a big connection. And so let's take that to the next thing, which is sort of the performance and the shift. I work with a lot of executives who come from long-standing cultures that just eat everything else for lunch, right? The culture, if it's not a good culture, can stand in the way of so much. So talk a little bit about what are some of the levers really from a culture people perspective that really hook in to performance and shifting in an organization.
Yeah, I think if I'm understanding the question, because I want to answer it succinctly, is it what are some of the key performance indicators?
Yeah. What are we looking at if we're going in and we want to attack culture and we know we've got one that drives everything and drives it off a cliff, right? What levers do we need to pull?
Yeah, I think some of the levers we use, and I can speak to some of the ones we use because that's just some of our own data. We do pulse surveys 3 times a year, every 125 days, and that really it's intended to give a pulse of the organization, and it's 10 questions, always the same questions, and embedded in that question is an internal net promoter score. Typically, companies do external net promoters, internal net promoters. Would you, Sally, recommend Roma Mouldings to your family and friends? That would be a question. And we actually rank that 0 to 10. How likely are you to recommend? And we actually really measure that. And then we share it internally. And depending on the size and structure of your business, in our case, we have facilities in the US and Canada, overseas in Italy. So we kind of silo the results. We don't want to know who the individual is, but we kind of silo them to say, maybe our Atlanta branch needs a little bit more love versus our California or Toronto branch, or whatever the case may be. That's one huge indicator. Another one I would say is, and it's probably not as popular, but gaining steam is culture aligned on your balance sheet? Like the spend on culture, is that aligned on your balance sheet? And I would argue that there's a direct correlation to culture spend to retention. And I think the two, as you describe them, are levers. And it's kind of like the way I equate that is in my personal life is you can either spend money proactively to stay healthy, or you could spend money, reactive to cure yourself of what are ailments. I choose the proactive, work out, eat healthy. You're still spending the same amount of money. It's just spent differently. I would say those are some indicators. And then some softer indicators are, do you have an internal recruitment policy which celebrates people recommending people? And is it actually being used? My dream is to be able to swell that to $5,000. So if someone recommends someone within our company, I'd like to swell it to a $5,000, cash payout. And you can do that over varying months. But I'm of the adage, and I know you both would agree, great people know great people. And the more, I don't know about you, but for myself, for me to recommend either an eatery or a movie, like I gotta really put my neck on the line. I don't recommend loosely. And I think someone recommending someone to work at an organization, that's pretty up there. And so if you could start spawning that internally, it's a telling story to the organization and the overall health and happiness of the people there.
Yeah.
Very good.
I mean, those are
it. Yeah, no, that's great. It's interesting because I work with a lot of boards on strategy, and when you talk about putting culture on the bottom line, I don't know that they would see it as well. And I have one particular company that we've just hired their CEO, and his focus is culture. And he's almost like a black sheep in his industry. He comes and he talks at industry events, and they're all looking at him like he's wearing, 2 heads or something. Sure. And his board is struggling with it because it's not how many widgets are we going to sell, but how are we going to empower people to, they have a work anywhere culture, work anyhow, anywhere, anyway culture. And I can tell you, people around him are struggling with it. So how did you kind of overcome those obstacles if you had them?
Yeah, I certainly had them. 8 years ago because we're a family run and operated business. My father started the business in 1984. He bootstrapped it, mortgaged his house to pay for the few saws and building that we had. And today starting a business is called a startup, and you get some venture capital money. Like, it's all cool. Before, it was people, sweat, blood, and tears really going into it. And so my dad had built this really great business, with blood, sweat, and tears, and over, I would say, and very successful. And I think my dad's one of the smartest guys I know. But even some of the smartest people can lose sight of their greatest assets. And so for us, me walking in, and I started in 1999, and things were gangbusters. I don't know if you folks recall, but 1999 was one of our best years. And then September 11th hit, and then shortly thereafter, the global financial. And I'm looking at our business and saying, Dad, we got to reinvent. The term I used was restart our culture. And my dad's like, what the heck is culture? And the first question was, and how is it going to make me money? And I remember getting stumped, right? I'm like, that's a really good question, because intuitively, happy people drive, great results, but how are we going to make that tangible? And I think for myself, I got some really great case studies that were out there. And one of the best case studies I got was, I looked at what Tony Shea was doing at Zappos.com, and how, he's a friend today, and he's really what shined the light for me on what's possible. And I remember early on, so to the gentleman that's probably struggling, or lady that's struggling out there, my one-liner to the board would be, well, we could spend money on culture and drive some great results, and see some great results, or we can't. And let me know what's going to happen if we don't focus on the people. It's kind of like that adage: we can hire C players, but I don't know about you. Hiring C players in many cases costs you far more than hiring an A player. And for me, that's been the adage. And I think early on, we started out with small wins, really itty bitty wins, and just shining a light on that, because that's what gains the momentum. That's what gains the. I know we want to, rid the world of horrible workplaces, but it's got to start somewhere. And I just started really small, start to get some small wins, and I would say some of the biggest wins I got were putting the right people in the right seats, and taking some of the people out of seats they otherwise had who are miserable, and not even filling that hole, but just that void and that energy difference. People were starting to look at, wow, I'll give an example. Supply chain's really different without Sally, and I'd be like, tell me more.
Interesting. Yeah.
So in many respects, I think we did what we otherwise believed from gut, and then shined a really big light on it. And
well, I like this idea of small steps, because I think culture seems huge, and I also think culture is prove you're going to be different. Prove to me that this is for real.
1 million,
absolutely.
1,000,000%. And if I can add to that, tons of small little steps, but I think some monumental small steps, if that even makes sense, was really defining the rules, right? And I recall a lot of people say, well, how do you want us? Because delivering wow through service is one of our core values. It's actually core value number one. And while I understood it and we understood it, many were like, how does that actually play out? And what happens when I press that or do that? What comes out? And for us, we had to create the rules, and the rules were our core values. And we unequivocally said we had no core values that we were going to live by. And at its core, we believe that hiring and firing should be based solely on the core values of our company. And
right.
And that was a big aha moment for us. So we created a values exercise, which probably took about 4 to 5 months, where it was accumulating the values of the people on the team, and then bringing them from 200 different values all the way down to 10 10 fingers, 10 values. And we asked them all the way down if we could live by these, meaning could we hold each other accountable, and ultimately could we hire and fire based on them. And unequivocally, that was the genesis, because from there anything's possible.
Right. Now, in your experience in working with companies who go here, I've been through that values establishing process. Let's revisit the values, right? And then I think they get stuck there. That they have these conversations. They are either in a place, they find they land back at some of the same values they've had for a long time, or that they find information and then they don't do anything with it. So what do you suggest you do with companies who are stalled at, the values are still just on the coffee cups?
Yeah, brilliant. I think as an executive team, by the way, I think there's companies that get it and there's companies that don't. And and if I was hired to work with a company that doesn't believe it, and I'm the guy trying to convince it, I actually walk away because there's nothing harder than convincing people. Like I don't know about you, I'm 42. I'm done in the convincing world. I'm either inspiring action and advocacy, and you either believe in what I'm doing or you don't, and I'm okay either way. Um, but how I would answer that question is, so if the company is at its core, like this gentleman that Sandy was referring to, and I love that he's the CEO or whoever that is at the top, really want to funnel that down because it's rarely a bottom up.
Mhm.
I would ask them truly, like, name me two of the values. How many values do you have? And name me two. And if you can't name me two, they don't mean anything. And if they don't mean anything to you, I can guarantee you for the 1,300 other employees, they're insignificant. So either you're going to make something significant or you're not. And as a executive level leadership or leadership level, 9 times out of 10, they get it. And then what I would say is once you do really establish values, by the way, by the people, for the people, it can't be Tony Gareri values or Sandy values or whoever. I mean, it truly needs to be by the people. Then what we do is we try to incorporate it in everything we do. And one of, I would say, our secret weapons for embedding culture is we have core value cards, and I probably should have brought one in. It's a very simple way to reinforce actions. So if you recall when we were younger, you recall Valentine's Day as a kid, we would get like little Valentine's Day card and it'd say to and from, and you give it to like a friend. You recall that? It's funny.
So much fun.
Everybody recalls it and then they smile. It was like so fun. Right?
What did that candy heart say?
Right?
We made the brown paper bags to put them in.
Right? And so we reinvented how would Roma look if we actually took that on? But instead of giving, happy Valentine's Day cards, we would actually give out like these 2x or 3x3 cards with the value on the front. So we have 10 values and we have 10 cards. And on the back, it says to, and it said, to, you would write the name, to Sarah. You've exemplified this core value in a way which aligned with our mission, which is to move, inspire, and wow. And then you have an area to write a message as to why that person did what they did and how it affected you. And folks, and then you sign your name and the date. I will tell you that's become currency in our company, meaning people display them, people have them, plastered, and people are actually, so the number one, the values are being permeated, has nothing to do with me. By the way, you don't get this like $2 for every 1,000 you give. Like, no, you get nothing other than the satisfaction. And what it spawned is people actually looking for evidence of the values in the company and then displaying it and giving mutual gratitude. And you both are experts in the field. Having people acknowledge one another in a company is like high currency on a good day. Imagine they do that aligned with the values of the company. It's next level.
Yeah, it's a very organic kind of recognition. I see you.
Yeah.
Not only say I see you, I see how you impact.
Right?
Yeah.
And the fact that you don't get anything for it really shows its authenticity, right? Because other companies will say, hey, if you do it, you put in a thing and you get like $3 and you could buy some Roma swag.
Yeah.
Not here.
Interesting.
So what advice do you have, Tony? Because I think what Jen was saying earlier is that all companies go through this mission, vision, values statement exercise, right? And nobody, for the most part, except for you, can actually remember what their statement is. And yours isn't the typical, we'll be the best whatever, or we deliver the best product, or we whatever. What kind of recommendations do you have to help organization kind of entwine their values and their culture as one?
Oh, that's a great question. I think they have to be truly honest with themselves to say, number one, are the values really representational of how we treat one another? I mean, if it isn't, people can, I love, like, we're in 2020. It's an amazing time to live. Like, you can't hide today. Like, you used to be able to hide and kind of fake it till you make it. I don't know about you, but I can smell a fake a million miles away. And I love that. I love it because it really spawns the authenticity level. So I think as an organization, you have to really look at each other and say, are those values actually being lived within the company? Because I want operational people to do this, but A, are you doing it? And B, is it really aligned with who we are as a company? Like, is it actually a thing? We want integrity, but then you're making like products out of plastic that don't biodegrade, that pollute the world. Like no, you're actually not in integrity. And that's a small example.
Yeah.
I think you need to get real with your values, number one. And what I tell executive teams, whether you know it or not, everybody has a culture. Your own family has a culture, and you have rules within your culture, and you have values. If you think you're going to run a company without rules and values, good on you. Let me know how that goes long term. But I would say unequivocally, people join our company. This is really important for companies out there. I would say 9 out of 10 people join our company because after reading the values, they feel they already fit in. They don't even know the product. They're like, I actually fit in. Like, I believe in all those values. And it's a magnet for us. By the way, it's also a repellent. And I think as a culture, try to make everybody happy, or a brand, good on you. Let me know how that goes. I think as leaders, we kind of got to sit on this fulcrum, on this pole, and you got to sit somewhere on that fulcrum. And the more you can polarize who you are and who you're not, I think will really define who shows up every day. And by the way, in our industry, we're not for everyone. We certainly are. Like, some people are like, you guys are too happy, or you guys are like t-shirt wearing, fun going. Yeah, no, we're much more serious, and that's cool. Like, totally okay. But we need to stand firm on who we are, and as a result, we repel who we're not, and we attract who we are. And there's nothing worse than dealing with people who don't believe in what you believe.
Yeah, well, that's we hire for skills and behaviors and experience, and we fire because we don't believe the same things.
Ultimately, right?
Right. So which leads me to this question. I watched some of the all hands meeting that you streamed on YouTube.
Love.
And where you featured a video about your leadership team and the event that you hold with your leaders.
Yeah.
And so it got me thinking about how do you know you've got a good leader for your culture? What are you looking for specifically when you put somebody into a leadership role?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we're actually looking for a leader right now, in one of the roles. And I think first and foremost, I mean, we've gotten really great at this because it's been over 8 years I've been CEO of the company. We have pretty rooted core values, rooted mission and vision. We know who we are and we know who we're not. I think for us, we certainly put a huge emphasis on values. So I think knowing who you are and who you're not will enable you to pick the right person, first and foremost, because let's face it, I'm a small to medium-sized business. I'm not, Procter and Gamble or I'm okay with who I am. And I think for us, the more vocal your culture, the more you can polarize. It will also repel the Procter and Gamble people. And there's nothing wrong with Procter and Gamble. I'm using them as an example, but
Sure.
They won't even show up because they're like, that's, they do a really good job. Roma does a really good job showing who they are and who they're not. And in fact, that's not for me. So natural, I would say, selection happens organically.
Mm-hmm.
People will watch a YouTube video of our all hands meeting and they're like, I don't like that. And
that is not for me. I would like a quiet cubicle, please.
Right. I think that's first and foremost. But we vet like crazy. Like, our onboarding is brutal. And it's because we really want to keep this really special. And I think the higher order bid is, if unequivocally all the various different levels in our organization don't think they're going to be a great fit, we don't hire them. even though they might be a rock star from a skill set perspective, culture for us trumps any skill. We can teach you any skill. We can't teach you to be humble. We can't teach you to build a, deliver wow through service. If you think giving good service is good enough, like, you're gonna die in our culture. We're about remarkable experiences. So I would think the thing we look for at the highest level is, will they fit, and will we, outside of actual work, want to go out for a beer, with each other? Or would you pick up the phone on a Saturday at 3:00 in the afternoon because, I don't know, we forgot something? Like, would you be that person? And folks, do we get it right all the time? No, we don't. I will say the other thing we look for, I think there's an art in the hiring and recruitment. I also think there's a science part. And so anybody out there that's hiring without any science is otherwise really crazy. And I think there's some really great science. And when I say science, whether it's DISC or Berkman studies, I mean, we use predictive success. I swear by it. And by the way, when they do the predictive success, we actually give them a copy, and we actually ask them, "Is that you?"
Is that you? Right. Sandy and I use PXT Select. You got to try one of those.
People don't share that, but I want them to see. I'm like, "Is this actually you?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's me." Or they'll say, "You know what? This is real, but I think like 5%, like not this part." I'm like, "That's really cool." Like, if I can get an unequivocal 90% of your character traits, oh, I'm gold.
Yeah. I think part of the issue for some companies, culturally speaking, when it comes to the science of hiring, is they don't want to believe the science. They like the person, but maybe they're not a good fit.
So anytime I went against the science, it's always bit me in the butt.
Right? The science is really amazing. And so let's plug the science. COVID science, hiring science. Science is good.
And it's come a long way. I think from even in the last 15 years, I mean, the science on and dependent on what you do. I mean, there's cognitive tests, there's varying different levels. I mean, we use predictive success. I know for some key roles, you can go deeper, but I unequivocally, I will not hire without some form of science.
Yeah, I agree.
Excellent.
I agree. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about accountability.
Ooh.
So, when I think about organizations now, they everything's about accountability, but they really don't know how to hold people accountable. So they talk about it. So how does that show up in your environment? So you're a fairly fun environment. Yeah. Can you have difficult conversations? Can you hold people accountable? How does that transcend?
Yeah, I think our culture, I would say there are two main components. So we're certainly accountable, but we're also very transparent. So, in all organizations, typically they think the marketing team does all the fun. They have all the fun. Operations works really hard, and it's them and us. Well, we try to flip that paradigm. And what we did is we put up control boards. We just call them control boards. You can call them whatever the heck you want. And it's literally, and all companies do this, they have KPIs per department. And we actually post what those KPIs are with progress bars every month. So while, marketing gets the, they make pretty pictures and get to do all the fun stuff. In our company, there's real KPIs attributed to whatever it is, marketing does with deadlines, timelines, and actual numbers. Similarly, in our call center, if you come to our company, their KPIs are listed right there monthly with deviations, meaning goals and what's your delta to the goal. So,
and is that by team or by person?
It's by team. Yeah, we keep it at the team level.
So it's transparent to the team, just not to the individual.
Very transparent to the team. We thought that's where we want to leave it at. It's flipped the this, right? Because now they're actually understanding that operations fill rate really has a direct response to our customer care external net promoter. So the higher the fill rate, the higher the net promoter. So they're starting to see that if ops is winning, customer care wins, marketing wins, and so that transparency, I would say, for us, takes away all the water cooler talk. It's actually why we host an all hands meeting and we do it live, and we showcase it to the world. We tell people who we are, where we're not. We also show them what we did and what we didn't. And I think that humanizes. I was talking earlier on a show I hosted about how do you make your company more human, like humanize it. I think one of the best ways to humanize it is by the accountability piece, saying, hey, we were supposed to do X. Hey, we did really well. We dropped the ball in a few areas, and where we were supposed to hit, 10 out of 10, we're at 8. We have some work to do, folks. And this is what we're going to do, and we're going to probably pivot, or we're going to probably do this. And it eliminates the water cooler talk because everybody actually knows where we are. And it's live,
Yeah.
so the accountability of live has people, it's next level because there's no editing in live. It's a live show. And we don't even have like a 16-second delay. So if there's wardrobe malfunctions, like we're screwed.
And I just want to go back because when Tony started the whole conversation, when he says, that making these KPIs visible flips this, he did the finger pointing gesture.
Yeah.
So it flips the finger pointing and takes it into an ownership role and less about shame and blame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I can just add to that, and while we're all about happiness and winning and things like that, we put a huge premium on that. But like any organization, we're bound, including myself, by the values of our company. So if you're winning and you're beating your chest every day and telling the world that we're that you're the best, well, you're not abiding by core value number 7. And we'll coach, mentor, and train that because that's not a behavior we want to condone. Or we're going to coach you out and find you a different bus and a different seat. And we've done that in many occasions to some of our top performers. And I want to add this because this is really important. The number one way to show that the culture is real is to really fire someone who really doesn't align with the values of the company. Because guess what? Everybody's wondering why you haven't done it.
Yeah,
right.
For sure. Yeah, no, I see that. And we all see it in organizations where they're wondering why Sally's been sitting there for 15 years and really hasn't been doing anything. And people talk, right? And it becomes this negative piece in the organization. But I love what you're saying about creating that alignment. I think there's a lot to be said, and there's certainly a lot written about employees. When they see the line of sight to how they're contributing to an organization, they work harder. They work, they work to an end goal more so because they can see what they're doing is adding value.
1,000,000%. And if I could add to the value component, I think, I'll take a piece out of Jack Welch's book, Winning. Having someone in the wrong seat of the bus who doesn't align with the values otherwise has them being in pain. Would you guys all agree? They're in some form of pain. And I would call out any leader to say that's actually not responsible on your part. Like you're not being responsible to the person you otherwise are there to serve. Because in leadership, you're serving them. People have this flipped paradigm that people need to serve you. And so as a result, I think a misalignment of values within an organization is actually being very irresponsible from a leadership standpoint. So I would call you out on, are you being responsible? Should Sally be in that position? Because look at her, she's in pain. And that's the way we look at it.
Right. Managers have to, part of the skill set is can you have the conversation when you give feedback? Can you get into the question is when when you showed up like that, when you behaved like that, when you chose whatever it is you chose to do, tell me how that lines up to what we find is important. And to really be able to have those conversations openly, right? That's how you can enforce all that. So
providing the coaching skills, Jen, I think that's the other piece that Tony said, right?
Right.
We're both coaches and we're advocates for coaching within organizations, but we often don't give them the coaching skills.
Right.
Those conversational skills. Yeah.
1,000,000%. And we do our best to try to coach all the way up, like coach, mentor, and train it up. Or, and you folks, I'm preaching to the choir, but coach, mentor, and train out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Because I think when people can own, this isn't a fit for me, and I can't make those choices because values are what's important. And if I don't see that as important, I don't fit. And it should be a relief to me to go on and find somewhere that I fit, where what I think is important for the people I'm working for. And that can be a release valve for people who aren't lining up.
1,000,000%. That's happened on occasion for us where we've had those conversations, and might I add, they're never easy.
No.
They're easy from a sense of we want to help, but the conversation is not one that's normal in today's day. Like, it's not a conventional conversation. And when we could really strip away all the rhetoric and share, we really at the end of the day want you happy. We've actually placed people in different organizations who are still there today, who then, call us back and say, while I joined your company and I thought it was going to be X, maybe shame on me or shame on you, that you guys helped put me in the right position for my future. Like, I'm still here today as a result of you. Like, thanks on that. Like, I think it permeates well into the future.
Right. It's a tough conversation to recognize when you're unhappy.
Totally.
Yeah. Right.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have one final question from me is, as you came through this kind of turnaround, growing this culture and really getting clear on what it is for Roma Mouldings, what was the hardest part of it?
Ooh. So what was the hardest thing?
Yeah. What was the hardest phase, step, piece, the one you struggled with, had to try more than once?
Yeah. I think the number one thing for me personally, I can speak to me, was number one was getting people to understand what culture was. And if I'm being very authentic, I didn't do a great job early on. I kind of knew it in myself. I couldn't articulate it. And I think the hardest thing was really standing strong, and in light of the challenges that you will face, like this gentleman coming into a culture or coming into a company and saying, we'd like to put a premium on culture, and staying the course is a nightmare. Like, year one was a nightmare. I wanted to run my head into a wall every other day. And because it was having tough conversations. It was creating the A, B's, and C's, who are your A players, B players, C players, and doing the hard work to either coach up or coach out. It was exhausting, but I knew that was the only way from a genesis or bedrock that we were going to build anything from there. I mean, you just can't build a remarkable team with a bunch of C players. I just think I think it's close to impossible. And Steve Jobs is quoted as saying, a small group of A players will outwit an army of B and C players. And I think it's so true, because when you could find alignment in a company and people align to the brand, people align to the vision, obstacles become opportunities and not roadblocks. And you all know the adage, but I lived it at this company. We had tremendous headwinds. Heck, we have tremendous headwinds today. Headwind in a flight simulation. But it's only because of who's showing up today that we're able to navigate this storm. I couldn't imagine my company today with a bunch of B and C players. Quite frankly, we wouldn't be here. And do we have remarkable products? Did our products change? No, we still have remarkable products as we had then. I would say our differentiator by a landslide is that we have remarkable people in the right seat going in the right direction for the right reason. And I think your culture is most tested and most viewed in turbulent waters. Because let's face it, when the ship is at dock, it looks really pretty and everybody wants to join. But when the ship is at sea and that baby's taking on, 40-foot waves, people are like, I'm the heck out of here. Like, what? This is not for me, right? And heck, we're in stormy waters, right? And I always believe, like, smooth seas never made great sailors.
Right.
Well, smooth seas never created great sailors. I say the same for culture, and I would really end on that, because I think your culture is most tested in times of trials and tribulations, and not jubilee moments of winning victories. Everybody will be at the finish line with the camera, taking the photo, hoisting the trophy. But who's going to be at 3:00 in the morning grinding and training and not eating pizza and doing all the right things for the race? I don't know.
Right. And I think this COVID is if you had a strong culture coming through this COVID thing, makes you stronger. And if you've had if you got a crappy culture, this is nothing but opportunity for a reset.
Yeah.
And folks, I'm truly living it. Are we out of the water? No. Are there challenges? Absolutely. There's a new one every day. But are we successful as a team? Yeah, this is less about me, and I can go on about each individual, and their contribution to this company is outstanding. Are our competitors waffling? Are they dropping the ball all day and twice on Sundays? And are we capitalizing? Absolutely. Have our products changed? No.
Excellent.
People.
All right, I'm gonna run through the 7 key points I got out of this conversation as sort of a wrap and then I'll toss it back to you, Sandy, to close this out. So I have, if you're going to do culture, number 1, it's got to be designed by the people. Number 2, it starts at the top. So once your people tell you what they want, what you hear, then you got to start living it at the top. 3, small wins. Small wins is the pathway to start this journey. 4, get yourself something measurable, KPIs. 5, make your KPIs visible, right? Here's where your accountability is going to show up is, are you walking the talk, and how can you see? 6, fire those who really don't want to align to the values. You got to be brave. So maybe it should be brave and pare down and put the people in the right place. 7, persistence, right? If you're going to make it real, you got to articulate it, leverage it, talk about it, stick with it over time. And then that circles back to step number 1, go back to your people, make sure it's still working.
Lovely.
Did I miss anything?
By the people, for the people.
Love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tony. It's been a pleasure. You're always such a wealth of knowledge in this subject, and I wish I could bottle it up and take it out to a lot of conversations that I'm having. And maybe I just need to articulate it different, but because I believe in what you're saying, and I just feel that so many organizations could do such better, greater things if they really focused more on their culture and their people.
Lovely.
So thank you so much for your time. Thanks, Jen. Pleasure as always.
All right. You betcha. Enjoyed it. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Sandy.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies, for being on the show. You're a wealth of knowledge. I've enjoyed working with both of you, and I look forward to the future together. And if I could be of any support to the community, I'm an open book, and they can reach out to me, and I'll certainly answer any questions I can.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening, and please visit Sandy's website at satoriconsultinginc.ca. That's SATORI consultinginc.ca, and Jen's website at managementpossible.com. Thanks again.